Welcome back to the Epic Bible Stories channel. We're about to journey into one of history's most famous tales and uncover a side you've probably never heard. Imagine a tower so monumental it would have dwarfed today's tallest skyscraper, the Burj Khalifa, 3 times over. And while this colossal structure was being built, women danced naked during sacred rituals in Babylon. For a long time, many scholars dismissed the story as a myth, arguing that the technology of that era couldn't possibly support such a feat. But a recent, groundbreaking experiment has turned that assumption on its head, proving that a tower of this size was not only possible, but was built using remarkably advanced ancient engineering. The researchers used the same clay found in ancient Mesopotamia to mold bricks like those mentioned in the Bible. A typical sun-dried brick shattered under just 880 pounds of pressure, which would have limited construction to a mere 492-foot tower. The key, it turned out, was in following the biblical instruction precisely. Let us burn them thoroughly. By firing the bricks at 800 degrees Celsius for 12 hours, they created a super brick that could withstand an incredible 6,600 pounds of pressure. With this newfound strength, calculations showed it was possible to build a structure up to 9,842 feet tall. The Tower of Babel, at its staggering 8,032-foot height, was well within the physical limits of the era. This wasn't built with steel, cranes, or reinforced concrete. It was constructed with nothing but mud, fire, and a sticky substance extracted from the Babylonian soil. So, how did they coordinate 100,000 people to work in perfect unison on a project of this scale? That's what we're about to explore. It took 43 years to complete the Tower of Babel, a duration longer than most people spend in their careers. Yet the most impressive aspect wasn't the time. It was the sheer organizational genius behind it. A workforce of 100,000 laborers toiled every single day for over 4 decades. Organized into squads of 1,000, each with its own leader, they worked in 3 rotating shifts. The work never stopped, not on Saturdays, not on sacred days. It was a human machine operating around the clock. The logistics were immense. Feeding the workforce alone required preparing 300,000 meals daily, a task handled by bakers, cooks, and assistants dedicated solely to the builders. Water was brought from the Euphrates River in ceramic jars, carried by donkeys and enslaved laborers. But the true cost of construction was steep. Deaths were a constant reality, falls from great heights, being crushed by hardened mud blocks, and exhaustion under the searing desert sun. It's estimated that 10 people died every day. Over 43 years, that amounts to over 150,000 lives lost. Each floor of the tower was, quite literally, built upon the blood and sacrifice of its workers. The Tower of Babel was much more than a simple stack of bricks. It was a monumental and intricate structure, a true vertical labyrinth of hidden corridors, secret chambers, and spiral staircases. Each of its 7 levels had a distinct purpose. The base measured about 295 feet per side, almost the size of an entire city block. The first floor, towering at 164 feet, housed massive storehouses filled with food, water, bricks, and bitumen. The second floor served as residential dormitories for the master builders and their families, who actually lived inside the tower during its construction. From the 3rd to the 5th floors were workshops where blacksmiths, carpenters, and potters labored ceaselessly. But the 6th floor was its most mysterious level. This was the tower's religious center, with chambers dedicated to sacred rituals. It was here that women danced naked around a fire, seeking the gods' favor so the tower might reach the heavens. Ancient tablets describe these rituals in vivid detail, portraying a cult of human power and an insatiable desire to touch the divine with their own hands. The 7th and final level was the most sacred, a celestial observatory. Priests used this space to watch the stars, interpret the heavens, and seek communion with the gods. The inner walls were lined with polished bitumen, creating a dark, mirror-like surface that reflected the flickering torch flames like a sky turned inside out. But a major challenge remained. How did they transport heavy materials thousands of feet high without elevators? This was the grueling daily reality for the workers. They woke at 4 a.m., ate hardened bread and raw onions, and began the climb. They ascended hundreds of feet on spiral ramps wrapped around the tower, carrying bricks weighing almost 33 pounds in each hand. With no handrails or safety equipment, one slip meant a deadly fall. The bodies of those who fell were buried in the tower's foundations, as it was believed their spirits would help hold the structure together. Despite the danger, there was no shortage of volunteers. Why? Because the payment was in pure silver. A tower laborer could earn in a single month what a farmer made in an entire year. For heavier loads, they utilized a revolutionary system of ropes and pulleys, wooden logs and palm fiber ropes, with 50 men pulling in perfect sync, guided by the beat of a drum. A quickened beat meant an important person was ascending. A sudden silence meant someone had fallen. At night, the workers slept in tents around the tower, in air thick with the smells of sweat, bitumen, and death. But a fear even darker than the exhaustion lingered, the fear that one day they would no longer be able to understand one another. And that day came. It was an ordinary morning in the 46th year of construction. Workers were following their routine when something inexplicable occurred. A mason shouted an order to his assistant, but the assistant simply stared back, confused. He couldn't understand a single word. It was as if his master had suddenly spoken a foreign language. Within minutes, chaos erupted across the entire site. No one could understand anyone else. Commands devolved into noise. Master builders frantically waved their arms, desperate to be understood. Workers dropped their tools in a panic. Some thought they'd gone deaf. Others believed they were cursed. The panic spread instantly. On the 6th floor, a group failed to understand a warning about a loose beam, and 5 men were crushed. On the ground, carriers let go of ropes suspending tons of materials, killing dozens in the collapse. In a matter of hours, centuries of accumulated knowledge collapsed with one word: Babel total confusion. The consequences were devastating. Families could no longer communicate. Husbands couldn't understand their wives, and fathers couldn't speak to their own children. Groups instinctively gathered by similar-sounding tongues, seeking refuge among their own. Within 3 days of the original 100,000 workers, fewer than 1,000 remained. The rest fled in all directions, forming caravans that would become the seeds of entire nations. The greatest human endeavor in history was abandoned overnight. Why build so high? The traditional story points to human pride, an attempt to reach the heavens. However, cuneiform tablets reveal a far more complex truth. The memory of the flood, which had happened just 130 years earlier, was still a fresh trauma. Nimrod, Noah's grandson, had lost dozens of relatives. His obsession wasn't merely about power. It was about survival. A tablet excavated in 1922 reads, "We will never be caught unprepared again." The tower was to be humanity's ultimate refuge, a structure so high that not even the mightiest flood could reach its summit. But there was more. The tower was also intended to be a cosmic antenna. At the top, priests would receive divine messages about coming catastrophes, droughts, plagues, invasions. Like a Wall Street insider who senses a crash before it happens, they would wield knowledge before disaster struck. And knowledge as power, absolute power, was the real goal. There was also a practical, strategic element. An 8,000-foot structure would be visible from anywhere in Mesopotamia. Lost caravans could use it as a beacon, and enemy armies would tremble before a civilization capable of such a feat. It was the ultimate display of ancient power. But building that high came at a cost not measured in gold or silver, but in something far more precious: human lives. The greatest mystery of the Tower of Babel isn't how it was built, it's how it vanished. A structure this massive, over 8,200 feet, tall on a 970-foot base, doesn't simply disappear. Yet, that's exactly what happened. Where there should be the largest pile of ruins in human history, there is nothing. Three main theories attempt to explain this enigma. First theory, a catastrophic earthquake. But earthquakes leave traces mounds of debris, fissures, displaced sediments, and there is no geological record of such an event from that time. Second theory, gradual dismantling. After the confusion of languages, people may have looted the tower's high-quality bricks to build new cities. But we're talking about over 600 million bricks, enough to supply construction for centuries. And yet archaeologists have found no trace of this material scattered across the region. Third theory, the most controversial, divine disintegration. Ancient texts speak of fire from heaven, claiming the tower turned to dust overnight. Scientifically impossible, perhaps, but it is the only hypothesis that explains the total absence of ruins, as if the matter itself simply ceased to exist. What we know for certain is that something extraordinary happened, and modern expeditions are still searching for answers. On the highest level of the tower, around 7,875 feet above the ground, was a secret chamber. Very few were ever allowed inside, not even the builders. Only high priests and their virgin priestesses had access. What happened in that chamber was Babylon's most guarded secret. Recently deciphered cuneiform texts reveal the unthinkable. They were trying to open a portal. They believed that at the right altitude and with the correct rituals, they could tear the veil between worlds. According to the writings, where heaven touches earth, the gods walk among men. The tower's summit was designed as a cosmic machine, with a circle of polished obsidian about 98 feet in diameter, engraved with astronomical symbols. At its center stood a solid gold altar where virgins danced naked under the full moon. Their menstrual blood was collected and mixed with liquid mercury, creating a magic mirror said to reflect other realms. Many of the priestesses went mad. Records tell of women who saw too much and never spoke coherently again. One, before leaping from the tower, screamed, "They are coming. The stars have eyes." Her body was never found. Witnesses claimed she dissolved into light before hitting the ground. Perhaps the confusion of languages wasn't a divine punishment. Maybe they succeeded. Maybe something came through that portal. What do you think really happened? Was it God's judgment, or did something cross over into our world? The builders of the Tower of Babel may have uncovered truths that humanity would only rediscover millennia later. This wasn't black magic or alien technology. It was pure alchemy. It all began with something deceptively simple: mud from the banks of the Euphrates, a special kind of clay found only in that region. But the real secret was the firing process. Unlike sun-dried bricks, the bricks of Babel were fired in enormous kilns at 470 degrees Fahrenheit, 800 degrees Celsius. This intense heat transformed the molecular structure of the clay, making each brick as strong as stone. Yet, even that wasn't the ultimate trick. The true genius was in the adhesive. They used natural bitumen, a thick, tar-like petroleum that seeped from the earth in black pools. When heated, the bitumen penetrated deep into the brick pores, forming a bond stronger than modern cement. It's so durable that archaeologists have found Babel bricks still stuck together after 4,000 years, and they've failed to separate them with hammers. Each brick weighed about 33 pounds, 15 kilograms, and to complete the tower, they needed 600 million bricks. This was an industrial-scale operation, producing 50,000 bricks per day, 365 days a year, with kilns running non-stop. To fuel this massive energy demand, entire forests were consumed. But all that technology would have been useless without solving one fundamental problem: how to lift those 33-pound bricks, more than 6,500 feet into the air. If the engineering behind the Tower of Babel has amazed you, just wait until you see what we've uncovered about Noah's Ark. Click now on the video appearing on your screen and discover how Noah built a 3-story ship capable of carrying 70,000 animals. The scientific evidence will leave you speechless. God bless you, and I'll see you soon.